Good morning everybody, what's happening, what's going on? Today I'm going to show you how to replace the clutch master cylinder on an E30 3 Series. Okay, so here we are under the hood. The first thing we need to do is drain all of the brake fluid from the brake fluid reservoir next to the brake booster. Now we need to do that because we don't want all of the brake fluid to drain from the connections once we disconnect the tube that is connected to the clutch master cylinder. As you can see here, this blue line goes to the clutch master, and basically the brake fluid that is in this reservoir is shared with both the clutch hydraulic system and the brake hydraulic system. Now before we get started, I just want to note and stress that brake fluid is toxic, it's poisonous, and it is highly corrosive. So rubber gloves, eye protection are highly recommended. And you do not want to get any excess brake fluid onto any really painted surface or pretty much anywhere on the car. Now there's also going to be a plastic cup filter in here, and we will remove this as well. Now that our reservoir is drained, we can safely jack up the car so we can disconnect the hard line from underneath. Right now we are underneath the driver's side of the car. Right here we have the line for the slave cylinder, and the hard line from that slave cylinder goes up into the clutch master cylinder. And if we zoom in here, we can see the end of the clutch master cylinder protruding from the firewall just beneath the brake booster. Now that hard line right there is what we need to disconnect in order to remove it from the car. Now the trick to doing this job and making it possible is actually not removing this nut up here at all, because that is next to impossible. So instead, what we're going to do is remove the hard line from down below where our soft line is. There's a union right here attached to the body. Now this is an 11mm, and you can use a normal wrench, but it is preferred that you use a brake line wrench to remove it. Once we disconnect this hard line here and remove the bolts from inside the car, we're going to slide the clutch master cylinder in through the firewall along with the hard line. We're just going to snake that entire hard line in through the car at once. So let's attach our 11mm line wrench, and we'll hold the other side with the 14mm standard wrench. Again, let me reiterate, you want to wear a lot of eye protection because corrosive brake fluid is now going to be dripping from this line. Now that the hard line is disconnected, we can begin work inside the driver's side of the car. Okay, so here we are back inside the car. The next thing you need to do is remove the cover or knee bolster from underneath the steering column. That will give you access to the clutch master cylinder, which is located here. And allow me to demonstrate why we're replacing the clutch master cylinder in the first place. As you can see, the bushings for the gas pedal linkage have worn away from friction due to all of the years of mashing that gas pedal to the floor. Now before I go any further here, I just want to reiterate that removing all of this worn linkage here is not a necessary step to replacing your clutch master cylinder. However, since all of this crap is in the way and I have new bushings to replace, I'm going to do it now and include it in the video. So the last step to removing this linkage is to disconnect the throttle cable, which is located right here. And here is the throttle cable. So the seal in the clutch master cylinder was leaking for quite a bit of time, and it was dripping all over this gas pedal linkage. and it essentially stripped some of the paint off of it. So I'm just going to sand this down and put a fresh coat of paint on it to protect it from corrosion. Okay, let's get back to business here. We're going to remove a 13mm from the end of this push rod. Now we're also going to need a 17mm wrench to hold the back of the bolt. And here on the clutch master cylinder itself, we have two more 10mm bolts that hold this cylinder to the car. So I'm going to use a 10mm in 1/4 inch drive and a 1/4 inch ratchet to remove it from the car now. Also, I want to note this blue line here is our clutch line, and a bunch of brake fluid is going to pour out of that filler tube once we disconnect it. So it's a good idea to get an old t-shirt or a bunch of rags and protect your interior's carpet before you remove that fill tube. Okay, so let's put our old t-shirt around the carpet to protect it from any brake fluid that we might spill in this next step. Alright, now that the tubing is disconnected, we can pull the clutch master out from the firewall, and remember the hard line is still connected at the back, so we have to be careful to fish that through without damaging or bending it. Alright, so here is the old cylinder out of the car. This thing is totally shot. As you can see, the rubber was worn out and leaking fluid for some time. Now what we need to do is remove our hard line here, and that is an 11mm. And when we install this hard line to the new cylinder, we want to make sure that it's oriented in the same position. That way we don't have any issues when we reinstall this in the car. Here's the new FTE clutch master cylinder. You can also get Febi, just as good, also made in Germany, and I'll put a link where you can purchase this in the description below. This next step is not necessary, however, this brake line here is really old and kind of rotted, so I ordered a new length from BMW, and I'll link that in the description below. It's really easy to remove this piece while we're at this point, because this is the tube that connects to the fill tube on our clutch master cylinder. Here we are back inside the car, and I wanted to show you this angle to show you the other end where that tube that we just disconnected attaches to. So we'll just force that back through the firewall and slip in the new piece of hose. Here's our new piece of hose. Here's the old piece from 1987. And we'll just match it up here and then cut it right here. This 45-degree angle plastic piece, I pretty much destroyed it trying to remove it from the old master cylinder. And I would really recommend just getting a new one from the dealer, so that's what I did. Here's the new plastic elbow for the fill side of our cylinder, and I'm going to attach this to our tubing, attach it to the new master cylinder, and then slide everything back into the car at once. Alright, we're ready to install this thing back into the car. Now remember, our hard brake line here is going to go, we're going to feed it in through the bottom. And our brake line tube, we're going to feed it in through the top hole in the firewall. Now this is also going to require going back outside underneath the car so we can check on the positioning of that hard line on the outside. So here's a little reminder, this is what the hard line looks like when it comes out from underneath the brake booster. It's next to all of these gas lines here, these tubes, and the steering knuckle. And I made it look easy in this video, but it really takes two people, I think. One person underneath to guide that brake line coming out, and one person inside the car to help you maneuver the the clutch master cylinder itself. Now we can install the two small bolts that secure the clutch master cylinder to the car, and we'll also reattach the larger bolt that attaches the piston to the pedal. You should know that aligning these two bolts are a major pain in the... and over torque these out of spite. And at the end, the bolt is a 13 and a 17. Let's attach the brake hose back to the reservoir. And finally, we'll reconnect the soft line from the slave cylinder to the hard line of the master cylinder. We'll refill the reservoir with brake fluid. Also, check out the paint job. Came out pretty sweet. I also ordered a new spring for the gas pedal mechanism. Check out how old and stretched out the original spring is. Now we can install this linkage back into the car. It might be a little difficult because of the new bushings. Now we can reattach the gas pedal and secure the clip to the back. And we'll attach our new throttle cable to the linkage with the new bushing. And this is the new bushing that the end of that throttle cable hooks onto. And actually, it would have been easier to install this first before we put this linkage back into the car. And let's install our new spring for the gas pedal return. The last thing we're going to do here is crack open the bleeder valve on the slave cylinder, which is attached to the transmission, and that's a 7mm. I'm going to let this gravity bleed for a few minutes, and then I'm going to have somebody help me push the clutch and bleed out all of the air from the system. As always, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, please smash that like button and subscribe.